Hello and welcome to another edition of Jokers Wild, our weekly battle of wits between two teams of comedians in which they battle for this, our Jokers Wild trophy, which at the current rate of exchange is worth $2.50, 3 million liras or 2 locks of Les Dawson's hair. Anyway, we'll get down to business and introduce the two teams, starting at the top of the table, our resident captain, the one, the only, Ted Ray, with Ray Martin.
Good evening.
And welcome to Fred Emney. And opposing them, we have our captain, minus 2 locks of hair, the one, the only, Les Dawson.
Good evening.
Welcome to Harry Corbett and
Good evening.
Brian Marshall.
Good evening.
The rules are extremely simple. Each one of our comedians will be asked to tell a joke on a subject I take from these boxes here. If a member of the opposing team thinks he knows the joke, he can interrupt. Both the teller and the interrupter can score points. We'll play the game, and you'll see how it goes. We start with Ted Ray.
Yeah.
Ted, I press the button.
Yeah.
And the subject is hospitals.
Hospitals. A lot of funny things happen in hospitals. I was born in a hospital. And, no, I was in this hospital, you see, and walking around the ward, you see, there were 4...
Interruption by Brian Marshall.
What, already?
Already? He's
If you do that again, you'll be calling these the good old days. Very good, wasn't it?
Two of these men in a hospital once said, hello, they're bringing in another case of diphtheria. They said, well, anything's better than that Lucozade.
Very quick baptism for Brian Marshall. 2 points. We've got to, can't be too generous. 2 points to Brian Marshall. Ted, was that your story?
No, but that boy will go far. I suggest Aberdeen.
All right, Dad, thank you.
Well, you can't prove it. There were 4 fellas in this hospital, very, very bored, been in there a long time, very bored. And one fellow said one day, can't we do something different, you know? What about a game of cards? And the fellow said, no, they don't allow cards in here. He said, this hospital is run by the International Trust. He said, I'm wearing one of them. And thereby hangs a tail. No, he said, no, it's not that at all, he said, really. But he said, you see, what we'll do is, we'll go to that bureau and we'll take 52 index cards of the patient's illnesses, shuffle them up and have a game of poker. He said, good idea. Well, they did this and they left the cards out. One fellow said, well, I'll bet a bunch of grapes. So the second fellow said, a tin of zinc ointments and 4 bandages. And the third fellow said, I'll raise you, he said, I'll raise you 2 bottles of Invalid wine. And the fourth one said, and I'll put mine in there, there's an old copy of a book, he said, and a couple of earrings belonging to the wife. So he said, right. Now they dealt the cards out and they looked at their hands and the first one said, well, I'll open. He said, yes, what have you got? He said, a transplant. He said, what's that? He said, 2 hearts. I said, the second one, what have you got? He said, 30 days. He said, what's that? He said, 3 tens. Very good. The third one, he said, what have you got? He said, a full house, 3 bronchitis and 2 double pneumonias. So they turned to the fourth one and said, what have you got? He said, 4 castor oils. He said, take the pot, you'll need it.
Emergency ward, Ted. 5 points. 5 points to Ted Ray. And now we move to the rather splendidly dressed Les Dawson. Beautiful. The Moss brother. At least if the joke dies, you're dressed for it. And I press the button. Les, your subject, travel.
The name of Manfred von Dip.
Interruption by Ray Martin.
That's what it said. There's a terrific draft in here. It's coming from Les Dawson's mouth.
I'm not giving any points to that.
No. Here, Les, is this a joke about this? He was an old tramp, and he stood in the gutter selling balloons, and he said to this little boy, do you want to buy some balloons? He says, I don't want your balloons, they stink. And this tramp pulled himself up to his full tattered height and said, they don't stink, it's me.
That's not the joke. It
1.
does stink.
I'm going to give that 1 point. I'm feeling miserly. Was that you? I can't believe that.
I
was your
refuse to
joke.
talk to a foreman from Dagenham.
I'll make some spare parts for you.
No, but the name of Manfred von Dip is of only any use to those of us who have shot the rapids in New Guinea. I first met him when I was treating geese with hemorrhoids in Bolivia.
It's a low-down job.
He made a pile.
Oh, dear.
He was the son of a German concert secretary who once walked from Kathmandu to Knutsford. He became the first golf professional to roll an oyster up Biggin Hill. And in the Explorers Club in Bootle, they'll tell you that he once shot the eyebrow for stuffed fish. And then drank a bucket of port through half a yard of conduit. And he always claimed that the greatest race of people who ever lived were the Incas, right? But there's only one man disagreed with. There was a Yorkshire farmer who owned Fleetwood. He said, nay, Von Dip. Nay. The greatest race of people who ever lived were Egyptians. Von Dip said, how'd you make that out? He said, I were in Cairo the other week. He said, and I saw the mummy of a queen in a pyramid. He said, well, why does that make them the greatest people? He said, they're the only ones I know that could make a woman dry up and keep her that way.
When he tells a joke, I always bring sandwiches. 5 points. 5 points for the Dawson Saga. And now we move to HMS Pinafore, and
That's a good one.
the card says, Ray, animals.
Animals. With no preparation at all for this. Animals. This farmer's milking a cow. So a fella comes up to him, and the farmer's down on a little stall, and the fella comes up to him and he says, excuse me, have you got the time? So the farmer says, well, hang on. And he goes, hey, wait a minute, I heard this joke on the Benny Hill show about 3 weeks ago, and then I heard the repeat, and I stole the joke, but I've forgotten the end of the joke, and if Benny Hill's watching, would he phone me up and tell me the end of the joke?
Interruption by Harry Corbett.
It's not Benny Hill's joke, it's Frankie Howard's.
Frankie Howard.
Yeah, he can be contacted at any Salvation Army hostel.
I still don't know the end.
Still don't know the
I
end of the
forgot
joke.
the end of the joke.
Does anybody else know the end of the joke?
Who wants to know the end of it?
Fred?
What's that?
Are you aware of the end of this joke? We're trying to finish it.
Oh, I wasn't listening, as a matter of fact.
You weren't listening. I admire your taste. This has never happened before.
But you know something, Harry and Fred, if I might interrupt, the end of the joke was that he said, how can you tell the time? And he got the cow's udders, right? And he lifted them up like that. And the fellow said, what time is it? He said, 8:30, right? He said, well, that's wonderful. How can you tell? By just lifting up the cow's udders. He said, well, I can see the village clock across the street.
This has broken all the rules. We're going to get all the letters about this. It was still Ted's team. 4 points to Ted Ray. 4 points to Ted Ray. And that was, in fact, Ray Martin's turn by default. But you got 4
No,
points.
but it was over there, you see, to Harry Corbett, and I got confused.
Yes, indeed.
And then Fred Emney came in, well, didn't you, Fred? You can't miss him.
Oh, it seemed like a flash.
Is this on the widescreen?
Oh, yes, indeed. The Bognor Thunderbolt. And now... Where are we? This is wonderful, isn't it? Nice bit of chaos. Harry Corbett, right? Yes. Harry Corbett, your turn proper. The game staggers to his feet. And your subject, Harry, business.
Oh, God, you better give me an easy one.
Business, I'm sorry.
Business. Yes, right. I'm coming down here with the horse and cart. Only took 7 days. And the horse only stopped, so I know it wants, you see, it wants the feed bag on. So I smashed the feed bag on it, just like that. And suddenly the horse rears its feet up, digs its heels in. I say, it's a little woman, poking it with the umbrella. I says, madam, you want to be careful, you're going to get oofed right up the kilt. She says, young man, I'm trying to cross the road. I says, well, can't you see that down there is a zebra crossing? So she says, I hope it's having better luck than I am. But that's not a joke. That's not a joke. That's not a joke. She says, madam boy, I've been trying to cross this road for 30 years. She says, come on, get it moving. I says, I can't get it moving, not when it's having the oats. So she says, give it a kick in the fetlock. I said, beg your pardon. She says, give it a kick in the fetlock. I said, do you mind? That's my second gear. I'm saving that to get up Tower Hill.
4 points. I'm giving Harry 4 points for that, putting Les's team 1 point ahead, 11-10, and this is where we leave our game for 1 minute, literally 60 seconds, and we ask one of our comedians to step out here and see how many laughs he can get in 60 seconds in front of our studio audience. We need a subject. The subject is marriage, and I'm going to ask Les Dawson to pick a member of Ted Ray's team.
Well, this is something I do know something about, Les. Thanks very much.
Will you stop doing that impression of Rommel?
Rommel?
No, it's no good asking Andy Pandy there, because we've... we've all agreed we'd like to see an island move. So I'd like to nominate Mr. Fred Emney.
Fred Emney, ladies and gentlemen. And so it is Mr. Fred Emney for 1 minute, starting now on the subject of marriage.
Yeah.
Mr. Emney.
We won't rush. Cannot stand heights. There were 3 Irishmen. What's that?
And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of Mr. Emney's minute.
All the way from Bolton, never do that.
We'll be back. I usually wear dark glasses for an eclipse of the sun. We'll be back with Fred Emney's single score and more of the game in just a minute. See you then. Welcome to part 2 of Jokers Wild. As you can appreciate, I've had some considerable trouble scoring Mr. Emney's contribution at the end of part 1. I decided 1 laugh for the joke and 5 laughs for the movement. So we've made that 6 laughs, Mr. Fred Emney. And we, in fact, stay with Mr. Emney because it's now his turn in the game proper. So I press the button.
Our 6 points are not up yet, are they?
Are you lagging behind on the scoreboard?
Yes, we must insist because they cheat.
The elastic's broken again. The elastic's broken again. Are you lagging behind on score?
16.
No,
what?
It was 11.
No, it's not for the single spot. Don't
do we
score.
get-
That's not in the game. The
Oh, I
score.
wasn't here last
No, no,
week.
no.
Sorry, I wasn't here.
That holiday's ruined you, Ted. And it's Fred Emney's subject. 6.
6. What is 6?
There's a lot of call for it.
I mean, my memory is not too good at all. 6. I never even knew a funny story about 6. I know a couple of sad ones. There were 3 very old gentlemen sitting outside a pub. One says, Charlie, says, you're 86, aren't you? He says, do you ever have a bit of loving? Oh, he says, yes, maybe 3 times a year, something like that. He said, what about you? Well, she about the same. What about old Bob here? He's 99. Wonder what he does. Ask him. He says, Bob, he says, do you ever have a bit of loving? He says, yes, once a year, and I dread the bloody day coming round.
That's 5. 5 points. 5 points, making Ted seem 15. And now we move to the realms of Queenie's Castle. Nothing personal, Ray. Mr. Brian Marshall. And Brian, your subject, welcome to the game, is Army. The Army.
The army. I'm a bit young for the army, me, but my brother, he was one of these breezy soldiers. He was a drafty. But I remember when I went to the pictures, that's the only thing I remember about the army, because I went to see Napoleon, marvellous film about Napoleon, and he's marching up to the hill at Waterloo, and he's got thousands of troops behind him, and he gets to the top of the hill, he says, halt! And this little man, soldier, comes right through all the troops, right up to him, he said, yes, sir, what do you want, sir? Napoleon said, pardon? He said, yes, sir, what do you want, sir? He said, I don't want anything. I said, halt. Oh, he said, I thought you said Walt.
We'll keep the needle match going. 4 points to Mr. Brian Marshall there. Let's. Oh, it is a needle match. And we go back to Ted now as the score 15-15. Ted, second round. The subject, art.
Yes, a lady, very rich, thought she'd have a picture painted for posterity.
Interruption by Leslie Dawson, spinster of this parish.
And she took a young nephew with her to see the artist. And the artist said to keep him amused, he'd show him 1 or 2 little paintings that he'd done. And he showed him one of a deer in a forest. He said, what's that? The kid said, I don't know. He said, you don't know? He said, no. He said, what does your mother call your dad? He said, don't tell me that's a louse.
I've got to be mean with the interruption scores. That's a good 3 to Les. Boo, indeed. Ted Ray.
A louse with horns on? This was this lady, and she went to this great Italian painter you all know, Annigoni, one of the most magnificent portrait painters in the world. And she said, Signor Annigoni, I would like you to paint me, please. He said, well, of course, sir, I will paint you. Anytime you like. I will paint you any place. But it was very expensive, you know. It's 6 sittings, no eggs, but 6 sittings. I charge you 5,000 English pounds, huh? Oh, she said, the money is no object at all. That's quite all right. But she said, I must ask you this. Will you paint me completely in the nude? She said, well, I'm sorry, I can't paint you completely in the nude. You see, I have to wear my socks because I have to have some place to keep my brush.
4 points for that, putting Ted's team 1 ahead, in fact. And we do go to Les Dawson for his turn in the second round. The subject, Les, clergyman.
A few years ago, I struck a very bad financial patch. The wife had fell off a bike on the wall of death. And it cost a fortune to get rid of the clinkers. She got another job, but she had to give it up. She kept getting a rash off the diver's helmet. Just after that, I was drummed out of the Lighthouse Plasterers Union because I cheated at Monopoly. And then to crown it all, on the Great North Road, my eldest lad was fined £10 for smacking a duck with a telescope. But to escape from the scandal, we went to a remote village that was so small, the speed limit signs were back to back. It was a very poor village. The wishing well was full of IOUs. We loved it there, in that little cottage. It was an old cottage. The mice wore powdered wigs. The only thing we didn't like was the local vicar. He was a long-winded bore. And one day we went to church, and his sermon was long. It was a drowsy day. The bees were humming outside, and everybody was dozing off. And he said, look at you, sinners. You come here in a place of worship, and you cannot keep awake to listen to what I'm saying. The only person who is listening to me is that poor benighted soul you have the audacity to call the village idiot. He said, if I was so bloody daft, I'd be asleep with him.
A 5 to Les Dawson there. What's the score now? It's 23-19, and we go to Ray Martin, our very own camping site, and the subject is food.
Oh, am I coming in for some rubbish on this programme?
Horses for courses.
Thank you. Food. Oh, there was this grocery shop in Downing Street.
Brian Marshall.
Yes, I know that one, Mum. Edward Heath, driving along in a taxi, and he got out and he's eating a meat pie. And this little old lady came up. She said, will you throw me dog a bit? So he threw it 100 yards down the street.
3 points to Brian Marshall. We return to Ray Martin.
It was cruel. Do you get much work? No, and outside this grocery shop in Downing Street, the grocer had all sorts of things like boxes of mozzas and boot polish and cauliflower. So this big geezer comes up to the grocery, says, I want half a cauliflower. Grocer says, what do you mean half a cauliflower? They're only 2 new pence each. He said, I want half a cauliflower. And he had a nose like this and ears like this, a real pots. So, a pot.
We ought to have subtitles on this programme. Go on. Yeah.
It's a Jewish word. It means ankle. And he goes back to his partner. He says, there's this big fat idiot outside, wants a half a cauliflower. And he turns around, and this big geezer stood right behind me. He's followed him into the shop. He said, and also this gentleman behind me wants the other half.
I like that. I'll give that 4.
That was a bit different. I told it properly.
I know you told it properly. Nearly ruined it. 4 points. 4 points to Ray Martin. 4 points, and it is Harry Corbett's turn. Harry, your next subject, restaurants.
Restaurants. Yes. Well, I was sat in this restaurant, you see, and the waiter came up to me and he said, how did you find the steak pie?
Introduction by Ted Ray.
And this old fella sitting at the table said, how did I find the steak pie?
I looked under a chip and there it was. You get on my nerves, you know.
Thank you dirty old man.
A bit of beating round the bramble bush there. No. Oh, I'm sorry about that. 3 points for that. No, 4 points for the impression as well. 4 points for that interruption. Back to Harry. Was that your story?
No. You see, so the waiter come up, and he says, how do you find the steak pie? I said, shocking. I said, look, there's a worm in it. He says, sir, that's fat. I says, no, it's eating all the meat and all.
And 4 for that as well. 4 for that to Harry Corbett. And it's Mr. Fred Emney's turn. And I press the button. Fred, the card is the Joker card.
Joker, what's that mean?
It means you can do anything you like.
Yeah. I think I'll have a rest.
Really? 3 for honesty. 3 for honesty. Oh, we have to leave our game. I'm getting the signal, ladies and gentlemen. We leave very quickly for our quickies, in fact. I want a quick joke, gentlemen, right down the table from each of you. And it's Jokers Wild as we start with Ted Ray.
I knew a man who was completely bald. He had a twin brother who was exactly the same. When they stood close together, they looked like a topless waitress.
3 points. Ray Martin.
Waiter, there's a dead fly in my soup. I know, sir, it's the heat that kills them.
2. Mr. Emney.
2 Jewish gentlemen on the Titanic when it was sinking, and one was lying down crying on the deck, and his fellow said, what are you crying for, Abby? You haven't bought it?
4 points to Fred Emney. Les Dawson.
The wife said to me last night, she said, we've been in this house now for 10 years and you still haven't put a lock on the outside toilet. So I said, why bother? Nobody's pitched the bucket yet.
3. Harry Corbett.
Well, I once had to give this sermon in the Actors' Church, you see, and I came down, and the vicar's daughter came over to me, and I said, how did it go? She says, Mr. Corbett, she says, I was up all night last night praying for you, and I said, you silly girl, I'm on the phone.
3 again. Brian Marshall.
This fellow went to the doctor. He said, doctor, I keep thinking I'm a dog. The doctor said, well, can you lie down on the couch? Oh, he said, I'm not allowed on the couch.
Straight 3s. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the result a tie. Makes a change, doesn't it? So both teams have in fact drawn. So let's say goodbye for now to Captain Ted Ray,
Good night.
Ray Martin, and Fred Emney.
Bye, Fred.
And on this occasion, they're drawers, if you'll pardon the expression, Captain Les Dawson, Harry Corbett, and Brian Marshall. So I'll ask both captains to collect the trophy. My name is Barry Cryer, and we'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.
Come on, then.